Ihre Papiere, bitte. Your papers, please. Verzeihung, aber Sie haben Ihre Granate vergessen. Excuse me, but you forgot your grenade. Der Amerikaner hat Hundekuchen in der Tasche. The American has dog biscuits in his pocket. Rennt euer Leben. Er hat eine Panzerfaust. Run for your lives. He has a bazooka.
Electronic Arts and DreamWorks Interactive present Medal of Honor.
Not bad. How do you say up yours, you fascist douchebag in German? Alright, so one of the biggest movies of the late 90s was definitely Saving Private Ryan. It was famous at the time for its less romanticized depiction of World War II. It was gritty, it was violent, it was a little unhinged, it was just like unlike any other film that had come out before it. And it did gangbusters at the box office. As Steven Spielberg was working on the movie, though, he caught sight of his kids playing something rather interesting. He found them playing GoldenEye, which at the time was one of the biggest games on the Nintendo 64. He was fascinated with how far the first-person shooter had come in since his day, and he wondered if it would be possible to apply the same realism that he had come up with for Saving Private Ryan to a first-person shooter like GoldenEye. So he got together a team of programmers and went to work. Now, that's not to say that there weren't any World War II themed games before Medal of Honor. The Wolfenstein series was probably the most famous example of this, but Wolfenstein was more of a pulp adventure game, something like Indiana Jones or, something along those lines, as opposed to a realistic depiction of the Great Wars. And when people got word that a team was trying to turn the World Wars into a video game with a realistic style, a lot of people were very skeptical. In fact, the Medal of Honor Society outright derided the game and, really painted it in a bad light. It also didn't help that this was around the time when the Columbine shootings occurred, so there was a lot of scrutiny for violence in video games at the time. However, the team really believed in what they were doing, and they even went as far as to bring members of the Medal of Honor Society to the studio to see what they had made. And the society members were, amazed by what they found. They found not just a violent run-and-gun shooter with a vaguely first-person World War II paint job. They found a respectful, detailed, and immersive representation of their experiences. And because of that, they decided to endorse the game. It's even where the game got its title, Medal of Honor. In Medal of Honor, you take the role of Jimmy Patterson, a World War II soldier who was recruited by the Office of Strategic Services, which was basically America's CIA at the time. It was their espionage and intelligence division, who then is sent to undertake various missions during the Second World War. There isn't a whole lot of plot to Medal of Honor, but it does a really good job conveying the time period, from the artwork of the loading screens to the design of the levels, the rendering of the weapons. It's all very detailed, and you can tell the developers really did their homework on all this. The animations for the time are especially impressive. I think this was the first-person shooter to actually have reloading animations. In GoldenEye, which was one of the first FPS games to actually have a reloading mechanic, the weapons would just fall off screen and would reappear loaded. But here you would actually see Jimmy eject the clip, load a new one, and then cock it. And each weapon had their own different reload times. So that was something to consider as you were playing the game. And, even the animations on the soldiers is really good. You actually see them reacting realistically to getting shot. So you shoot them in the head, and you'll knock their hat off. If you shoot them in the shoulder, you'll throw them off balance. And if you shoot them in the chest, but don't get a kill shot, you'll knock them off their feet, and they'll continue firing while they're on the ground. So you really gotta pay attention to what you're doing. As far as the gameplay concerned, it is essentially just GoldenEye. The game uses a mission-based structure with various objectives that you need to complete, ranging from gathering intelligence, destroying key objects, or just making it from point A to point B. There can be multiple objectives from level to level, and you get more objectives if you pick a different difficulty. So it definitely is in the vein of GoldenEye. Where Medal of Honor differs is that it was one of the earliest first-person shooters to actually give you the option to play with dual analog. So you move with the left stick and you aim with the right stick. And you even have to hold the shoulder button to freely aim your gun with a crosshair and everything, like you did in GoldenEye. And when you set it up like this, it actually does feel very modern. It honestly feels very similar to like Resident Evil 7 or something. It makes the game play exceptionally well, and it's still fun to play to this day. Now, that's not to say that the original Medal of Honor holds up 100%. There are some levels that are missions that are a little too complex for their own good. Any mission that involves stealth was always a problem because sometimes you would flash your papers and it would work. Other times the guards would just decide you're a threat and start shooting at you, and in stealth missions like that often meant you died. But no. And then you got later missions where they just start throwing enemies at you who are armed with bazookas, which is unfair as all hell, and that probably wasn't something that happened too often in the World Wars. Most people aren't crazy enough to try and take out one man with a frickin' missile launcher. But regardless of its issues, Medal of Honor really was impressive for the time, and for what they were able to achieve during this time period, it really is amazing. I've played this game for the showcase already, and I was surprised at how well it still holds up. Medal of Honor, for a good long while, would endure as one of the iconic first-person shooter series. Honestly, there was a time when it seemed like every first-person shooter that was coming out was a military World War II FPS. However, over time, competition started to come. The most famous one would probably be Call of Duty, but there were a ton of World War II first-person shooters at the time, and it wasn't long before the market just became completely flooded. Eventually, they stopped selling, and Infinity Ward and Activision actually saw this coming and made a choice to mix up Call of Duty with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which moved the gameplay to a modern-day setting. This definitely helped Call of Duty survive the flood market, and unfortunately, it took Medal of Honor too long to really make the change. They did a couple more games with the World War II setting before they too tried to move to the modern setting with 2010's Medal of Honor. Unfortunately, by this point, it was very clear what they were doing, and with Battlefield also being a bit player in the military FPS, Medal of Honor just couldn't keep up. And since then, there hasn't been another Call of Duty game. Not Call of Duty, Medal of Honor game. I think this is primarily because the people who own the series are EA, and they've got it covered with, the Battlefield series. And at one point, Star Wars Battlefield, but that's another story. So they probably don't see the need to do another Medal of Honor game. However, I feel like there is still room for the Medal of Honor series in the modern gaming landscape. If I were given the reins for it, I would actually go back to the World War II setting and focus on the espionage again. I feel like that would make for a really unique experience, especially compared to what we've gotten used to. But, EA doesn't really like single-player games. They're starting to get better about it, but, I feel like the Medal of Honor series has just kind of run its course, which is a shame because this really was a groundbreaking game for its time. But anyway, that's going to do it for Medal of Honor, guys. Join me tomorrow as we continue on with the PlayStation Retrospective. I'll see you guys then.